A long time ago, on a comics page far, far away. Greetings and welcome to May the Panel Be With You, the Star Wars comic book podcast brought to you by Punch Up Entertainment. I am your co-host, Mike Gargoni, and joining me, as always, the trash compactor monster to my trash compactor. And yes, I know the name of the trash compactor monster, but we'll get there when we get there. It's John Campbell.
Yes, thank you. I'll take that. I'd rather be the monster than the trash compactor, so that works for me. Hello, everybody. Boy, we do get some trash compactor action this week on the show, so.
Yes, we do. Maybe a little too much trash compactor action.
A lot of trash compactor and more trash compactor monster than was in the movie, so.
Question for you, John. Do you know the name of the trash compactor monster?
Answer, I think you know I don't, Mike. I think that's a pretty... Yeah, no, I don't. It was just... I mean, it's an eyeball and a tentacle as far as I've ever seen in my life, so...
The creature is called the Dianoga, and in many adaptations, including some more recent ones, it is a Force-sensitive creature, which is why it attacks Luke specifically.
Wow. I've never known that, so...
That's what I'm here for, John. That's what I'm here for. Education.
That's it exactly, where it is like... Because I know these movies backwards and forwards, but that next surface level thing is where you dig in. And that's the great thing about this franchise. I think we've talked about this before. One of the things I love about Star Wars is you can engage as much as you want to with it.
Well, and we are engaging in it hard because, of course, we are on issue number 4 of 1977's Star Wars by Marvel Comics Group, the original Star Wars comic adaptation of the original Star Wars movie that was released the summer just after that movie was released.
Yeah. Boy, oh boy, does this pretty brisk 2-hour movie start to feel pretty long when you stretch it out to 6 issues of a comic book.
And of course, we've got pretty much the same creative team as last time. We've got Roy Thomas on writing, Howard Chaykin on pencils, Steve Lealola on inks, and Tom Orzechowski on letters. And this particular issue was published on October 1st, 1977. So we're coming into the fall now, coming towards about 6 months of Star Wars fever having gripped the nation.
And you got to keep in mind at this time, too, we don't have things like home video or whatever. So Star Wars is still in theaters and people are still going all the time. So Star Wars, had a good probably 2-year just absolute blast at the movie theater.
Absolutely.
The film industry was a totally different time. It wasn't big release each weekend. It'd be like you'd have like one big release for the year in movies at this time.
And this was that release.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, probably the only thing... People are still going to Jaws from 2 years ago would be the only other thing that's around at this time. Like, it's a weird thing where you're watching... People are still going to the previous year's box office hits.
And I'm absolutely certain that there were drive-ins in places that had Star Wars and Jaws as a double feature happening during this period of time.
You had Jaws in 75, Rocky in 76, and this in 77. And I think those are still the 3 movies people are going to at this point. So,
But it's also why you can have a cover like the one we have now, opening that up. We start with the battle with Darth Vader as a title character on this page, and people can be drawn to that because they already know who Darth Vader is.
It is. This cover is insane to me. This cover is... Okay, so we have this cover that is Obi-Wan, Luke, and Leia, and then over them is this very horror movie, Darth Vader with his hands up. He's gonna get you.
He reminds me of Andros from the Star Fox 64 video game.
Very much so. But the thing I think that's interesting about it is that's a cool design, but this also is implying this is physically happening. Because Luke is turning and shooting at this giant Darth Vader.
Well, and specifically, his laser blast from his blaster pistol is ricocheting off of his hand, something that wouldn't happen until Empire Strikes Back, John.
Yeah, I know. I absolutely. Yeah, that's very much an image from that. Do you think George Lucas saw this and went,
I don't think George Lucas. Actually, knowing George Lucas, he might have seen this, though I don't know whether or not
I
he had
feel like
any.
I feel like this is a cursory glance at best from Mr. Lucas of, yeah, comic books.
Yeah. Well, because he was making most of the money off of this, right? Because of all the merchandising rights.
Absolutely. But something tells me he wasn't very invested in the quality of this where he was actively like checking up on it. So I'm sure it was
Right.
more like, yep, looks fine. Going along. I'll take my checks.
Also, can we talk about Obi-Wan's mustache on this cover here? This Don
Yeah.
Quixote kind of look he's
Yeah.
got.
And also now we've just got a straight up white lightsaber for him at this point. And of course his iconic green robes.
His green full body towel, like Bed Bath and
Yeah.
Beyond style robe. This is the kind of thing Charlie's granddad wears to bed in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
It does have that vibe to it. Where you're just going like, yeah, Obi-Wan is all kinds of wrong here. Luke, that jawline is not a Mark Hamill jawline by any stretch of the
We are
imagination.
well and truly back into the Luke's face is different every panel in this issue.
Oh God, yeah, Luke is looking terrible in this thing. And then um, Princess Leia's red shoes really distract me on this.
Well, look, she just needs to click those together and say there's no place like home and she'll be free of the Death Star.
Absolutely. And everybody's like, but this is turning into something I think you would probably enjoy, Gergani, which is Kaiju Vader based on this thing where it's like, oh my God, he's gigantic now.
Look, my love of kaiju is deeply and truly appreciated across many of the podcasts that I co-host, but the one place I am a little bit hesitant to get it in is Star Wars. I've seen it work. Don't get me wrong. I've watched those episodes of the Clone Wars, but
Yeah. They've come close.
do I want any of my primary Star Wars antagonists growing to monstrous proportions to terrorize city streets? No, probably not.
Make my Vader grow.
So if Palpatine is Rita Repulsa, does that make Thrawn Lord Zed?
Ooh. Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
I don't
Ooh,
know.
does that make Vader Goldar?
I think that makes Vader Goldar.
No. Ooh, that's not good for Vader.
It could be worse. I mean, we all know the Stormtroopers are the putties. That's easy.
That's a given. Ooh, I was gonna go Tarkin's a Babu then. I don't
Is
think
it-
he's squat.
No, I don't, because Tarkin doesn't stick around long enough, though. I think it's what's his name from Empire that sticks around until
Oh,
Jedi as well.
yeah,
Admiral something or other. I'm blanking on it right now.
the Veers.
Yeah. Veers.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting. Yeah, this is what people tuned in for. How does the Power Rangers, line up with the?
Look, we all know Han Solo's a Green Ranger.
Oh, Han Solo's a Tommy and Luke is a Jason. That's a given, man. That's a
100%.
given. That's why the Green Ranger is my favorite as a kid. I go, the Han Solo of the group. But
Speaking
yeah.
of long-winded intros, though, let's get to this first page because, boy, howdy, do we have the editors working overtime to be just like, oh, we get it, it's Star Wars. We all on the same page here?
Well, when we were mentioning the credits on this, it's interesting because legendary editor Archie Goodwin, for some reason, is involved as a consulting editor on this. So we've got an extra editing hand on this one.
Well, and looking forward a little bit, Archie Goodwin quickly takes creative control of this book after the first adaptation period.
Interesting. So maybe that's already creeping in this issue, which is weird to think about because the idea of issue to issue, this being an adaptation of the movie, this just feels so churned out that the idea of somebody going like, yeah, let me get in. You can really feel it on issue 4 when Archie Goodwin's hand comes in.
Well, I think it's just telling that him like starting to creep in on this book means he's showing an interest and will eventually take creative control. But
I think so. And is he responsible for this weird voice in the descriptions here? Because all of a sudden there's a tone to this.
Suddenly we're kind of approaching some Like, yeah, Marvel Comics in this period definitely had the third person narrator as kind of almost antagonistic to the main characters and towards the readers a little bit, was definitely something we saw across a lot of books. X-Men is definitely the biggest one with Claremont, but it
Yeah.
was present in a lot of books at this time.
But I just love this. We're kind of in a hurry this issue, so pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, and we got to get this recap here. And we're just shooting and grunking all over the place on this first page.
Look, the classic Wookiee phrase of grunk.
Yep. And we're zicking and zrapping.
It makes me very curious about how far in advance this was scripted and drawn and lettered, because at this point, like, everyone will have had to have seen Star Wars by October.
Right.
And let's assume that this was made a month previous, so like September, this was drafted and whatnot. They know what Chewbacca sounds like, and grunk is the best they can do.
At this point, they're like, well, we're already... I'm curious to see if grunk sticks around post the adaptation, because at a certain point, it's like, guys, you do know what everybody looks and sounds like. Like, really. And that the grunk is apparently Chewbacca complaining, because Han is saying, never mind the complaints, Chewie, just keep firing.
And Luke saying, so they're getting closer despite the fact that we don't see any bad guys. We just see laser blasts coming towards them.
And we're doing this like Batman 66 tilted angle thing here too, where we're in this. Also, I don't remember this zinger from Han Solo. Now I know why they call this place Death Star.
So that actually raised my hackles a little bit right from the get-go, because and it happens a couple of times in this issue, when were Han and Luke ever told that this place was called the Death Star?
Oh, that's a good point. I just thought it was a dumb zinger, but now that you bring that up, I don't know that they... Oh, do they say it at the briefing on Yavin?
Yeah, later.
That's what I mean. That's the first time I think that comes up.
Yeah, because they have the technical readout that's inside R2.
But at this point, they don't have that.
Or they haven't seen it anyway.
Yeah, they have it, but they haven't seen it. Yeah, you're right. That's insane. Unless they just overheard some stormtroopers going, here, serving here on the Death Star, blah, 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 Death Star. Right. Yeah.
Also, I've always loved this about the whole concept of the Death Star, is the fact that it's called the Death Star, and that's its official name within the Imperial records.
Right. The idea that it's not called Space Station 2140 or colloquially the Death Star. It is officially called Project Death Star.
Yeah, and it's being called that by the engineers working on it and the people running the station.
How's that Death Star build going? Oh, pretty good. It's kind of a star that brings death where it goes.
Good times.
Yeah. It does feel like it should be a nickname, but it's not.
But yeah, catching up with the story right now, we find our heroes having just sprung Princess Leia from the detention block. They're trying to fight for their lives. Meanwhile, Obi-Wan Kenobi is somewhere else in the station trying to shut down the tractor beam. And, of course, of our original cast, that leaves only the robots, C-3PO and R2-D2 unaccounted for, with an arrow pointing to the next page, as though, come on, we got to get through this book.
I know. Well, it's also the idea about going so I do what now, comic? I turn the page?
And of course, when we do turn the page, we do immediately find ourselves with R2-D2 and C-3PO, though a jacked R2-D2.
A jacked R2-D2. And once again, a pose that I'm pretty sure the 3PO costume does not allow. Of him in this stretched out oh! What? Blam, blam! I guess they're shooting this door.
Yeah, I mean, they're knocking on it. The blams, that's not the sound of laser blasts in this. It's not a zrak or a zip or a ruse.
It's not a frap or a zrak or a riz. Now, in this panel, speaking of laser blasts, I think, is it in here, where they talk about don't waste ammo? Little weirded out by that line.
Well, look, John, do you want me to get into how the Star Wars guns actually do have ammunition or not?
Well, I don't. Well, only in... It so rarely comes up in the movies.
Yeah, it almost never does come up.
Yeah.
But occasionally, and in stuff like Bad Batch, we see it more often than not. But
that's that's where I know it from, that you have people like changing, cartridges and stuff in like, Clone War situations.
Right. And so it does. There is no infinite laser guns in Star Wars per se. What people are carrying with blasters do have a shot count. It's not like a 12 shot magazine or something. It's a lot higher than that. But it does.
Yeah.
It is a thing in Star Wars.
But it's at this point, and in most in any movie, I've never seen anybody drop a mag and put in another one.
No, it's true.
It is more in the high combat situations of, as you say that, I have seen that in, yes, with your clone troopers and stuff like that. But yeah, I never saw Han Solo jam another magazine in his blaster.
No, and the Star Wars movies and TV shows, for the most part, take place in that magical fantasy Christmas land where guns never run out of ammo, and we don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. Believe me, I can get into phasers in Star Trek, which are even weirder. But you have to charge those suckers.
Yeah, they have a capacitor limit, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. But I also like the line where this is not only, I was going to say the lines, but let me just even get to the escape into the trash compactor is visual nonsense. If you haven't seen the movie, good luck following the progression of what happens here.
So I also love the arrows pointing towards what panel you're supposed to go to next. Like,
Yeah.
because if you've never read a comic book before, this is how you do it, kind of a thing.
Which is so weird.
Because we got 3PO and R2D2 back in the control room saying like, oh yes, all of these systems have been alerted and the stormtroopers are coming right now. And then we cut back to the cell block where we have Leia taking charge and saying, this is some rescue.
When you came in, you didn't have a plan for getting out, and then we get the Han Solo, he's the brains, sweetheart.
Which anyone calling Luke Skywalker the brains is making a vast miscalculation.
Absolutely, and also something I feel like Han Solo would not say.
Or at least not admit.
Yeah, Han Solo would feel he's the brains.
Right. Also, I love the line as after Leia blasts a hole open in the floor, Chewie going grog and Han saying, no, Chewie, don't rip her apart.
This Chewie in this comic is so fucking bloodthirsty. He just wants to rip everybody apart. And yeah, the grog is apparently, look at him. He's a menacing figure in that panel too. He's going, oh, I'd love to rip that lady apart if I could get the chance. Oh, yeah.
He's like some kind of murderous Sasquatch.
Gonna be ripping people apart. So they go down into the trash compactor here, where of course everything is also just the colors. My God, the colors of this book.
Well, and we also have, like you said, visual nonsense of like, we have no idea where anything is in relation to each other. So when they fall down this chute, suddenly it seems like they fall 5 feet down into just the trash compactor that's below them.
Because, once again, having seen the movie, it's actually pretty simple. She blows a hole in the side of the kind of floor wall there, and then they go down and they slide down a tunnel, basically like a trash chute, into the thing. But here, it just like, I don't know where anything is in relation to anything else. Anyway, let's go to the next page where they're in the trash compactor here. And we're going to get
Han trying to shoot his way out.
And everything's ricocheting with this may have the most crazy sound effects of any of these issues so far, because we get a patak patunk zik patung patang pakong.
I actually really like that for the sound of like ricocheting laser blasts inside of a place. That was really effective to me.
Sure, I mean the visual's pretty good on it too, in terms of the way the lasers are blasting off the walls. But I'm just talking. It's just the amount of sound effects, even on this page alone, because we get a grunk from Chewbacca, we get a woo, which is the trash compactor monster.
Well, because Ric Flair is lurking below.
Yeah, because then and then Luke gets pulled under with a distinct blub.
Which, there's just this hard cut between the panels of them hearing the woo, Luke going, what's that sound? And then in the next panel, Luke is submerged and it's just his hand up out of the water. And again, if you haven't seen the film, you almost have no idea what's happening.
That's a lot of work to do in a gutter. That is asking a lot of the readers, right?
Yeah. It almost feels like the bottom panel and that panel should be swapped of Luke getting
Yeah,
strangled by the tentacle and him going blast it, and then cut to the hand being pulled under.
I agree. And
But
Luke, the sound of
who am
Luke being
I?
choked, of course, is a glup.
Yeah, and the Dianoga is really having its way with Luke down here in this bottom panel. His face is
Yeah.
one from a 70s horror comic.
Oh yeah. Once again, the moments where Chaykin just decides, yeah, I'm going all in on detail are these interesting moments to me. But then look at the complete lack of detail on anyone else in that panel.
Oh, I don't think Han Solo's eyes are open in any panel besides the first one on this page.
No, go to the. I mean, yeah, the next page. This is a mess. We get another Gronk. And I'm sorry. Is this a Chewbacca? No, that's not a Chewbacca. When it says Kronk, that's the sound of the metal, right?
I think, but no, I think it might be a Chewbacca sound because Chewbacca is almost always like in green, and that one's also in green.
Yeah, you're right. That's why I read it as that. So, because we get the
Yeah,
the thing that jumps out to me, and I don't know why you'd be watching this if you're not, but I'm saying if you really read modern comics, the sound effects have been way pulled back in modern comics. There are way less sound effects. In fact, as somebody who dabbles in the comics field myself, I really try to avoid them unless they're necessary. They do kind of read as cheesy and old sometimes if you're not careful.
but I also really do appreciate them sometimes. Like I love a good crack-a-thoom in a Thor comic or something.
I think it depends on what you're trying to do, too, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you've got because when you're in superhero stuff, you've got iconic things. You want to see a snicked when Wolverine pops his claws and stuff like that. There are certain sounds associated, but it is rampant. I mean, like Luke spitting. Do we need a sput?
Yeah, I don't know. And the fact that it looks like he's drenched in urine, it doesn't help.
Oh my God, the colors, the colors.
Yeah, obviously it's garbage water. I mean, it's supposed to look nasty, but it really does
It is
look
but
like he's spitting pee.
yeah. This is actually the outhouse for the stormtroopers they've fallen into.
I mean, it is though.
Well, yes, I mean it is. It is the all things dredge into here, right?
Mostly what I love about this sequence and something I've only given thought to, like in a more modern like thinking on this, is how do these giant chunks of metal get down into this room?
Somebody's just hucking them down there, going, "We don't need these girders anymore."
Who tried to flush a girder?
Come on. I want the stormtrooper jamming that in the toilet, going, "Come on, get down there." Lord Vader wants this gone.
Like, there are ship parts down here. How did they end up there from... Because this is particularly a trash compactor on the detention level. Who was smuggling in a fucking, like, power converter into their prison jumper?
Okay, here's the thing. We're all going to bring pieces of an X-Wing in here. Then we're going to assemble it and fly it out. There's a plot for a future Star Wars episode or something. Just... there. I want the Great Escape of Star Wars stories. That'd be cool.
No, it's when they arrested the Star Wars version of Johnny Cash as he was trying to build his Cadillac.
All right, here, man. I'm gonna put this little piece on there, and oh, I need that. Don't you throw that? Oh no, don't put that in the trash compactor. Oh,
yeah. The one piece at a time story is a lot sadder in Star Wars.
Yeah. But there is, yeah, you're right. There's something funny about just, it really is, yeah, this is everything. You might expect food pieces or something, but the fact that there are just huge chunks of metal going, I don't know, just throw that down there.
Yeah, so of course we're in the middle of the classic scene where the trash compactor walls are coming in. They're trying to brace it. It's not working. And Luke is shouting at 3PO to shut down all the trash compactors on the detention level. But there's this weird time dilation in this particular iteration of it in the comic book adaptation because the walls are coming in and he's shouting for 3PO. Meanwhile, 3PO is still in the control room, whereas at this point in the movie, they've already snuck away from the control room.
Yeah, this is the thing that's so interesting to me because we talked about this in the last issue, how much they just kind of gloss over the destruction of Alderaan. But in here we get so much of the trash compactor sequence. and also the associated sequences around it, right? Like
Yeah.
3PO and all of this stuff. I mean, look at this next page. Almost the whole page is just 3PO talking to the stormtrooper, and it is like, "Can we leave? Can I bring this protocol droid? Can I take him somewhere?" Okay, and you're like, "My God, do we need every detail of how they get out of this room?"
Apparently we do, and we needed to devote 6 panels to it across a page.
Yeah, it's wild to me that this is all in here. And then just to cut back to yeah, that is a distinct Chewbacca gurk.
Yeah, no, like I said, I'm pretty sure all of Chewbacca's sounds are captioned in green.
Gurk, grunk,
Gurk,
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 gurk.
gurk, gurk. You know, those
Yeah.
sounds Chewbacca makes. But
Oh
again,
yeah.
well, something we said in the last episode was like, how the fuck do you even caption the noise Chewbacca makes? Yeah, there's
Um,
some H's in there, maybe some R's, an N, maybe.
Now I'm trying to think of now, and I read all the current Star Wars comics, and I'm trying to think how they write Chewbacca.
They just say he makes some like growling noises. They don't
Yeah,
actually write it out phonetically.
yeah, it is like a growl grunt kind of thing that they write, and I think that's fine because we all know what it sounds like once again.
Well, and the
At
best
this,
part of the Star Wars like audiobooks is when they're describing that in the book, they put in the Chewbacca noises in the back because you know
yeah,
what it
yeah,
sounds
yeah,
like.
yeah. And like the when was it Jerry Duggan who did that Chewbacca miniseries? You just don't have a lot of dialogue in that book.
Yeah, and that was great.
So let's go to the next page here where we're still in the trash compactor.
And I like that Leia, who admonished Han for blasting the door the first time, immediately opens with, "Try to blast the door again. It's our only hope."
And he hits it with a mighty zrap.
And it does nothing. But
No.
meanwhile, the droids have magically teleported across the space station, and they have to shut down all the trash compactors on the detention level, which they do.
So for this to all work, man, based on the way it's presented here, these walls are moving much slower than they do in the movie, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. And we also don't have that dramatic beat because of how mismatched the time is of 3PO freaking out and hearing them all shout once it's shut down, but it's them shouting in celebration, not being crushed to death.
Which is one of the funniest bits in that first movie. Oh dear, they're being crushed to death. We also get, you've got to love the inclusion of the detail for the numbering of the maintenance hatch. Come on, man.
Which is
You're just killing time now.
it's a detail that's in the movie, but it's said on the comm to 3PO while 3PO is reacting, so it's not a detail that's highlighted in the film.
Right. But here we've got Luke Brett. Hold on, let me see this here. I mean, it's just, you talk about, at this point, I'm just going like, they clearly started adapting this movie and then went, we're getting through this thing too fast. We got to slow it down, everybody. It makes 6 issues here because when you've got Luke brushing gunk off of a thing to read the unit or the hatch number, I'm going, good God, we're just killing time in this book.
Yeah,
It
and the
should
fact
not have
that
taken 4 pages to get these people out of the trash compactor.
and it's a 9-digit code, so it takes up like most of the panel's art centered frame.
Hold on, I've rubbed away some more. There are actually 6 more digits. Jesus Christ.
8675309. How do you even translate this last one? I don't know.
Yeah, is there a button up there, R2, that says Nine? And then I see something here about a call Jenny. Yeah. Oh, for those Tommy Two-Tone fans out there.
But we do have again the weird version of R2's scomp unit in this
Yes, yep.
page.
There-
We have the weird like shoulder box that's coming out of him.
So bizarre, especially for those of us who were so familiar with, I mean, because if you're a Star Wars fan, you've seen R2 plug into stuff and get people out of jam so many times. I know, just I can close my eyes and instantly see what that looks like.
Well, and the fact that so many other droids have a very similar functionality at this point. Like we saw the droid do it in Rogue One. We've seen droids do it on all of the animated shows. Like what's his name? The little ball one.
BB-8?
BB-8 also doing it with a very similar piece of technology. It's the
Yeah,
Stomp unit.
there's a distinct, there's sort of a USB nature to it, right? Where it's all there's a universality to it, and it's very simple and just like bloop, bloop, and then the thing turns. Bloop, 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 bloop. Here, I don't know. All I know is it's making a Badik sound.
Yeah, well, and R2's sounds are always a little off on this because again, I don't
Beep,
think they
beep,
knew what
beep, beep,
but they would have had to have known what he sounds like at this point.
Yeah, it is. That's the thing at this point now, 4 issues in. They know what this stuff sounds like, but they're just sticking to the consistency of their own comics.
Well, and we don't know exactly how far in advance these were scripted or written or drawn. So for all we know,
they were edited late in the game. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Somebody's still approving this for publication. Some of this stuff could have been changed.
Well, and these sound effects are added much later in the art process, regardless. It's very rarely the penciler who's adding those stuff.
Exactly. That goes. Yeah. The lettering is your last pass, so that stuff could be changed. Now go on the next page, and good God, the lettering, because there is so much. You talk about just, oh my God, when you turn to this page, you go, look at all the words about describing what Obi-Wan is doing.
Well, because God forbid you have a silent scene in the movie not have descriptions like a fucking novel.
I mean, what do you need to know other than Obi-Wan is trying to shut down the tractor beam?
Which is said in the opening dialogue panels.
I mean, let's look at this. Meanwhile, nearby, Ben Kenobi hides amid the equipment that powers the great tractor beam. Now, I would have stopped there, but instead, which in turn holds Han Solo's ship in thrall.
That's even covered in the opening narration.
Ben Kenobi, once he was Obi-Wan of the famed Jedi Knights. By the way, I love of the famed Jedi Knights. It makes it sound like they're a football team. Former wide receiver of the Jedi Knights.
I think Obi-Wan would have been a running back personally, but that's just me.
Yeah. That's true. And then it goes even further. Now he, like the others, is a fugitive on board this sprawling battle station. And even as he makes certain adjustments in a computer terminal and several lights change from red to blue, the net draws time. Good God! That is just... this is my problem with comic books of this era. It is just writers going, I gotta say something! I gotta write something!
Well, they're not playing into the strength of the medium, which is something that was definitely figured out in this era. I think there are writers emerging in this era that
early 80s,
that are figuring out exactly what the strengths of comic book storytelling are, and a lot of times it's letting the art speak for itself, which is something some writers have trouble with.
Yeah, because it's interesting. It's guys like Frank Miller that really figured this out, because they're guys who write and draw. And so they start to figure out, I don't need to say any of this stuff because I can, or when you start to get collaborations between like Danny O'Neill and Neil Adams, right, and stuff like that, where you're starting to go like, oh, Neil's art's really good. I think I can just kind of let this sit.
Yeah, exactly. And like you have Walt Simonson doing Thor a little bit after this, and you have
yeah. I mean, the 80s. This is an interesting time just to look at comics because we are right on the cusp of comics completely changing, and we'll see that as we just go through this Star Wars series.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And then meanwhile, this is where I was talking about. The trash compactor monster makes a brief other appearance that he does not in the movie.
But it was in the script originally.
Yes. Well, that's what they're dealing from. And that's the case. But kind of, I would say a good cut. It doesn't, like, once they're out of the trash compactor, does this thing need to keep coming at? I like Han Solo shooting it.
Right. Because I think in the movie it's either here Chewie takes one last shot into the trash compactor.
Yeah, they just kind of simplify it. Although I do like that we finally just gone with a simple zap.
A nice simple zap.
A nice simple zap is this gooey tentacle arm comes out of the... Now, they never do the little eyeball in the comic that's in the movie where it comes up out of the water.
Well, and I'm sure the eyeball specifically isn't described in whatever shooting script they were given to adapt.
And that's a total, like, insert special effects shot in the movie.
Yeah, the Dianoga eyeball is 100% something the creature prop master came up with, like, within the week, and was just like, wouldn't it be cool if this popped out of the water? And
it does.
Yeah, that looks pretty cool.
It's actually a thing I think about before I think about the tentacle when I think of that creature, because it's kind of iconic. We also get, just to indicate, the last stripping of the chest plate of the Stormtrooper armor off of Luke here, just to go, and we're back in our normal looks.
I always found it hilarious that they were wearing their normal clothes under the stormtrooper armor. It's like, I
Mhm.
don't think the armor works that way, but whatever.
I don't think I don't they just got, the stormtroopers just have like a button up on under there.
We get the classic Leia line here of "Tell your big hairy walking carpet to get out of my way." I like
Mhm.
Chewie's little "ronk," like "I'm a carpet" kind of
Bro,
sound.
racist. How dare you? Yeah. I mean, this is good. We get some of the listen, your holiness. Let's get something straight. And this is from the movie. I take orders from one person, me.
And
We
Leia's
we're
rejoinder of "It's a wonder you're still alive."
That's all. Yeah, we're getting some more. We're getting a little bit more of the personalities of the characters from the movies in here, which I appreciate. No reward is worth it. I mean, because this is the key to, and obviously this is the banter that completely makes up Empire Strikes Back that they lean into so hard in that movie is this
Yeah.
kind of banter. So moving on to the next page here, very this is very Chaykin, this first panel on the next page, but not
Mm-hmm.
very Star Wars, this very noir kind of thing of Obi-Wan hiding from these stormtroopers, and it's very stylized.
Also, a complete disregard for Obi-Wan's little like force trick that lets him get away in this scene. That is just like not even brought up in. You would think with all the like narration happening here, they'd be like, and then Obi-Wan Kenobi, the once great Jedi Knight, projects the force of others down the hallway, distracting them while he might slip away. But no, we don't get any of that.
It just kind of stands in the shadows. Whatever. Should we put in that force thing? Nah, forget it, man. It doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
don't make the space wizard seem more magical. That would be bad.
No, 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 no. Uh, Back to Han and Luke and everybody looking at the Falcon.
Yeah, I do like. I always like Leia's line. If you came here in that, you're braver than I thought.
Yeah, they are capturing that, which I was kind of worried that they were going to lose a lot of the Leia, and especially because the dialogue, so much of that Leia personality came from Carrie Fisher. But obviously, they're keeping the dialogue, and I'm reading it in her voice, so that works for me. But once again, just all the colors, that bright pink communicator in Luke's hand.
Yeah, and the weird
Why?
orange backgrounds, like highlighting the characters, like to make them pop from the salmon background that's behind that. That's
I
just
don't.
totally washed out colors. Yeah, who knows?
Totally so weird, but then everything is also blue and orange in the other panels with this pink floor, and
Yeah, it would be less egregious if it was consistent, right?
yeah, it would. It's like, okay, well, this is their stylized take, but instead it's like, guys, even you don't know what this is supposed to look like in your own comic.
But yeah, we actually do get a better orientation of where everybody is in this comic than we actually do in the movie, which I found interesting. The fact that Luke, Han, and Leia and Chewie are above, like directly
Yeah.
above where 3PO and R2 are, is something that's like you can kind of piece together in the movie, but in this it's made explicit.
Well, I think because here we're not dealing with physical sets, obviously. So whereas in the movie those are two separate sets, there was no ability probably to get a shot of them together. So
Right.
you have to kind of. So here, this is where the comic book works. If the colors weren't so insane,
Right.
this would be it. Where you're going like, oh, got it. They're up here looking down at the Falcon, and this is okay.
Hmm.
But no, but oh, here come the boys in white. I don't remember that line in the movie.
Yeah, well, the terminology buckethead hadn't quite come up yet.
No, 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 they didn't. Yeah, but oh, the boys in white are back.
But this is the bit
Stop
where
the
Han
fire.
chases him down the corridor. And I love in the next page all of Han's angry faces. But this first panel is just so bizarre. His head is way too big. His mouth is like wide and agape. The cheekbones are insane.
Insane. And can we talk about Leia's teeth in that first panel too? Most of her mouth are just big old chappers.
Oh, that's a failure on the inker. It has to be like there are some
Yeah.
lines that were not drawn in that panel.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Not to say that
Okay.
the penciler's off the hook here either, because if he didn't like make it clear where the mouth starts and stops, I think that's on him as well.
Also, this is I love this scene in the movie where he chases the stormtroopers, and it is done so poorly in this comic book because once again, there are no wide shots that indicate the actual movement of this. So it's in dialogue. You've got Han going, "Oh no, they're about to run into a dead end." Where? And of course, the thing in the movie is not a dead end, but it's just when he turns the corner, there are like 20 stormtroopers. And you get that great Harrison Ford, like, "Ah," and he's running back the other way.
Well, and specifically the special edition too, when he like empties out into that corridor and it's like a whole hangar full of them.
Yeah, it's great, man. And here it's all this just, I mean, it's just, once again, you don't, it's all Han. You get very little of what stormtroopers are around him, and he's just telling you what's happening, basically.
Right. The second to last panel on the bottom of the page here, where Han like basically narrating to himself for the whole back half of this page, but the face down here where he's suddenly jaundiced as though he is like considered with like terrible rage at some act he's committed, like in some kind of old romance comic.
And what I like is he keeps the teeth clenched into the next panel too. And
yeah, but in the next panel it looks like he has a jawbreaker in his mouth.
Mm. And Chewie's hitting us with his classic catchphrase, "Harank."
I do like a haronk.
And so they're running back, and you're just going like, man, way to like suck any action out of this action sequence.
On the next page, though, are you ready for the most awkward retcon in Star Wars history?
Yes.
It's so much worse than this comic adaptation.
Can I talk about this first panel, though? Luke and Leia's arms melting into each other on that first one there?
Yeah, it's because they both got big sleeves, and it's not made very clear that they're holding hands. It just looks like they have one big long arm connecting the two of them.
It's pretty weird. And this is, of course, where they're going to end up swinging. This is the iconic, very, swashbuckling moment in the first movie where we're going to swing across the chasm here on the Death Star.
But Luke has to explain every step of it. We've got to get across to that other side, and it looks like this cable is our only chance as he makes the line out of his utility belt.
I also love, hey, it caught on those pipes. I don't really know what I'm doing. I just sort of threw it in that direction, and luckily, it just caught onto those pipes. All right, princess, grab hold of me, and then talk about a romance comic. Hey, hey, hey.
There is a mouth-to-mouse kiss happening here, though we actually never actually see the kiss, but it is implied that there is an open mouth kiss happening here.
Yeah, look at Luke's mouth. Luke's mouth in particular is the he's going for, but he's going what?
Yeah. So whereas in the movie and in later adaptations it will be just a kiss on the cheek where Leia says "for luck."
Yep.
And but this is a implied mouth stuff for luck.
Howard Chaykin will, of course, be known for doing some sexy comics later. And here's a little taste of it, folks.
Yeah, and unfortunately...
Come on.
What we didn't know is that these two characters were siblings.
Mm-hmm. The little 10-year-olds reading this comic are like, oh my.
And this will give us a generation of jokes from Kevin Smith and others about Luke being hot for his sister.
Well, and this comic is like, yeah, we're going all the way in on that. Before we get to this insane, man, this transition to the next page where they're swinging now, something's wrong here.
And it's because they're going in the wrong direction, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it doesn't work. The flow of motion doesn't work at all. They suddenly switch sides.
In the previous page, there is a constant movement from right to left as they're fleeing down the corridor from the stormtroopers. They get to the chasm where they have to like make the line to swing across. And so in the setup panel where we see Leia grabbing onto Luke and Luke about to swing, it looks as though he's about to swing from right to left. So when we go to this next page and suddenly he's swinging from left to right, it is jarring and it's like breaks the momentum in a weird way.
It's an interesting thing because it's a rule in cinema that I don't often think about in terms of comics, but here it's obviously applies to some, which is the 180 rule, meaning when you cut between shots, the idea is you want to keep people on the same side of the frame. If somebody's on the left side of the frame, somebody's on the right side of the frame. If you cut to another angle where they're suddenly on opposite sides of the frame, our brain can't make sense of that. It looks wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And here's a comic book doing that.
Yeah, and we also have the next two panels with them suddenly fleeing from left to right. And if all of these top three panels of this page were just mirrored, it would like visually make more sense, and you wouldn't require your brain to stop for a second and go, wait, hold on. And obviously, like, logically, we know what's happening in the page,
right?
But it is that continuity of motion in images that is kind of a hallmark of bad visual storytelling at times.
This is something an editor should catch. This is why you have an editor. I mean, an artist should not draw it in the first place, but let's just assume that people are working and not thinking about it. This is where you have an editor going, wait. What's going on here? But this also, I think, speaks to maybe the lack of editing on this book.
Yeah, and obviously this would have been so much easier to fix in a digital age of comics where you could literally just mirror it on a horizontal plane and suddenly the problem is fixed.
Right, yeah, no, I mean, corrections now happen so much easier because everything happens. Beyond the penciling, and some people even pencil digitally, but beyond the penciling, everything is done digitally now, so anything can change. I mean, you're changing comics right up until, like, the day before they go to print.
Right, and even then, sometimes they change it after the first print run.
Yeah, and oftentimes, yeah, the digital run is a different thing. And
we haven't run into any like truly problematic writers or artists on this series just yet.
No,
but I am sure there is a dearth of Star Wars comics out there, and we are bound to run into one or two of them. And there are people who have snuck things into their books that, as soon as they hit the comic book stands, people went, whoa, that's not cool.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll get there. But so let's go. So they swing across. You get a Frizak, or Frezk.
I was a little disappointed we don't have Stone Cold Leia badass gunning down stormtroopers in this bit.
No, it's all Luke. Leia doesn't even handle a weapon here. But I want to talk about the three panels here at the bottom. Who's this guy in that first panel? Who is that?
It's Obi-Wan, but he's had Botox injections in his chin.
And he's shaved off all of his facial hair.
Well, he's got a mustache. There's a mustache there.
Kind of, but it doesn't. They talk about the inking. It's not indicated enough. I can kind of see it, but I'm looking for it. But man,
well, the big problem is that it's all crosshatch shadows, and so it's impossible to distinguish bits of his face other than the eyeballs.
Once again, Obi-Wan Kenobi, master of the shadows in this comic book, right?
I mean, it literally says he makes himself a part of the hallway in this scene, so I don't know what to tell you.
Is that Force powers?
Ben Kenobi seems nearly a part of the passageway itself, as a large cluster of stormtroopers hurries past him. When they say large cluster, they mean two.
I'm looking at two, and also I can see all that in the panels here without having to have any of that description. Then, pausing to make certain they've all passed.
The fact that it even says that is so dumb.
I can't believe it says that. Failing to see the dark silhouette. I do like this deep focus shot with Vader's helmet in the foreground. That is cool. Objectively cool.
Yeah. Though the fact that the panel that says then pausing to make certain that they've all passed is just a shot of his foot, and it seems to be his foot in motion, so he's not pausing at all.
No, and in fact, and those guys have just passed, so it doesn't seem, it seemed like he took off immediately. So let's go to the next panel, or the next page here. Han and Chewie are running and about to fall down based on the look of it. These guys are, look at Han's really leaning there.
Well, and we've also got, it took me a little bit to figure out exactly what they're trying to show here. And what they're showing off is that the blast doors are closing. But rather than just like big heavy doors sealing the doors like we've seen in Star Wars later, these are what looks like Indiana Jones style, like falling bricks coming from the ceiling.
Yeah, it does. Or it looks like when they retract the bleachers in a gym, like it's coming in section by section, where it's like top layer, second layer, third layer. It's weird.
Well, it's coming down because we see the slam in this second panel here, just as he makes his daring escape.
But yeah, it is. But yeah, it's in like these weird layers. Weird.
But it speaks to kind of the adventure kind of stylings they were going for in the movie, and it was clear in the script. Like in this Escape from the Death Star, you've got a lot of running around, a lot of swinging, a lot of like old campy adventure stuff, and so having a falling ceiling seemed, I think, excessive compared to the fact that they just got out of a place where the walls were coming in.
Yeah, how many things need to fall on these people, you know? How many times can you threaten to crush your main characters?
Right.
But it does have, yes, it does have that. Obviously, Lucas was always very upfront about the Flash Gordon influence on this and stuff like that.
The fact that no one ends up fighting a duel on a slowly rotating platform is actually shocking.
Flash Gordon. Now it's interesting. Then, of course, we were talking about, you and I were talking about beforehand, then when you get the Flash Gordon movie, though, then that becomes Star Wars ripoff. You're like, well, no, Flash Gordon can't. Well, that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And another Gronk from Chewie. Before we get to,
oh, John, no, that's a Nork. You can't confuse a Gronk with a Nork.
oh, you're right, that is a Nork with the silent G.
Yeah, with the silent G. You can't not forget that.
Yeah, sorry, my dyslexia came out there for a second when I was putting. I just saw Gronk because I'm so used to it. So you got Obi-Wan moving towards the Millennium Falcon when he sees suddenly, boy, I don't remember Alec Guinness doing this. You
okay? Legitimately, I love this part of this comic.
Okay.
The duel between Obi-Wan and Vader in this comic, I love.
There are parts of it I am with you on. Is where I'm at with that. We get another liquidy lightsaber blade here when he zips this thing.
Yeah, again, they have no idea what the lightsabers look like, and the blade is pink, and both blades are pink. Don't worry about it.
It's all weird. I mean, so a lot of this dialogue is the same, but there's some weird change, or probably weird changes in the movie. Once again, not from the script, yeah, because they're. I do think when you go to the next page, when they call him the fearsome Dark Knight, though, my eyebrows went up on Vader. Or it's like Dark Knight, you say?
Well, what I found interesting is, so we have this beginning of this duel. We have Obi-Wan rolling up on Vader going, you, and Vader with his classic line, I've been waiting, Obi-Wan Kenobi. The circle is now complete. When I left you, I was but a learner. Now I am the master. And rather than having the classic rejoinder of,
only a master doth.
Exactly. Obi-Wan busts out with a, you still have much to learn, which I actually really like that line.
Oh, but I love Only a Master of Evil Darth. It's like one of my favorite lines in Star Wars. So I just think that's so that's a little bit more lofty, right? This like only a master of evil doth.
This page in particular, I really, really like because it reminds me so much of kind of that promise of the old samurai duel. That was sort of the idea behind the Obi-Wan Vader duel in A New Hope, but because of Alec Guinness not doing any training and them not really knowing exactly what the special effects were going to look like and not knowing exactly what a lightsaber duel even was at that point.
There's a lot that went into that, where they really didn't take the time and there was a lot of question marks in it and stuff like that. So, no, I agree. This is cool. It's the next page that has the silly thing, but this is all pretty good.
Yeah.
Other than the Zirax, the physics, a little too much on the sound effects, I think.
I love the repartee back here where Vader with the "your powers are weak, old man," and Obi-Wan saying a line that is absolutely not in the movie, which is, "You only know half the Force, Vader."
Well, I don't even know what the hell that means.
You perceive its full power as little as a spoon perceives the taste of food, which is mysticism 101.
It is, but it also doesn't sound like Star Wars, like the use of the word spoon and stuff like that just feels out of place. But I like the idea of it.
And I do like the narration here because it does speak to these like two old foes, like having these big lunging clashes that then like slowly grind into each other. That is just not in the movie.
I like this last. I mean, you get this is all very cool.
The lightsabers locked in midair. The two powerful warriors stand motionless like titans out of some lost time.
Yeah, that's a little much for me, but
See, I love the purpley prose, but yes, this next page is where it starts getting a little sillier again.
yeah, well, it's like we got to get back to this now because we got everybody in the hangar just kind of hanging out. Just kind of, there's nobody around at this point, but I love Leia being like, "Look over there, a lightsaber fight." And this is where the lightsabers are getting real wonky. I understand they're like trying to do arcing through the air kind of stuff. Makes it seem like the blades are real wobbly.
Yeah, or like it's something we've seen in comics later as well, as like the energy actually like crackling off of the lightsabers in this kind of like liquid way.
And it's done better in later books as we had as and a lot of that is just because we have more visual reference for what they look like in the movie and stuff like that. But yeah, everybody's watching. Don't love the line "Prepare to meet the Force, Obi-Wan."
Yeah, and we get like a kind of butchered version of the Obi-Wan line of like, "Cut me down and I will become more powerful than you can possibly imagine."
If my blade finds its mark, you will cease to exist. But if you cut me down, I will only become more powerful. What?
Followed up with a, "Heed my words."
Yeah. Heed my words!
Yeah, and Vader following up with, "Not this time. I am the master now." Like, no, I am the master.
But it's like, didn't you just say that?
Just said that, yeah.
Yeah. I want to reiterate one more time. I am the master now.
But okay, this next page is
this next page, it has
wild,
the craziest image in any of the issues we've seen so far.
So
what is happening?
We have that iconic scene where Vader slices through Obi-Wan, and in the movie he just vanishes. And in this, he explodes.
Yeah. Look, I know there was a lot of drug use in the Marvel offices at this time, but good lord.
For a brief second, Obi-Wan Kenobi becomes Warlock from the New Mutants.
Yeah, this looks very Sienkiewicz, man. Look at that. Yeah. And also, what is the line? I, Darth Vader.
Well, because it's a follow-up on I Am the Master. Darth Vader.
Yeah. Huh? And then, even crazier, honestly, is him picking up the robe with the blade of the saber.
And poking at the robe as though it's like, well, this is a laser sword, so clearly I should be able to poke the robes like with a stick, right?
Hey, where'd you go?
And Vader, puzzled at the old man's disappearance, pokes at the empty cloak. Is what the caption says.
If I remember in the movie, it's like he steps on it with his boots, right? Isn't that kind of
well, because I think at that point in the production, they'd figured out like, okay, lightsabers are just a laser sword. If they cut something, it'll burn.
This is also a pose I don't want to see on Vader. The one hand on the hip and him going like, "What the hell? What's going on here?"
It is like he's holding a stick and he's poking something on the ground.
Yeah. Hey, somebody get over here and help me. I got to figure out what happened to this guy. This is weird.
Oh, can we talk about the sequence of Luke faces at the bottom of this page, though?
Oh, good lord. You talk about the 3 different guys here. Because lots of detail on the...
Yeah, he's got a big screaming Ben as he... What does it say? Till Luke Skywalker realizes that he may have just seen Ben Kenobi's death. What do you mean he may have just seen?
Evidence is still out on this, man. Jury still needs to get back to us. I don't know what I just saw.
He briefly saw Obi-Wan Kenobi turn into a character that wouldn't be created for another decade, and he thinks he's not dead.
Especially now in the movie, it's a little bit more mysterious because he seems to disappear at the same time as the swipe through. Here, he appears to explode into pieces, and then. Also, I don't remember Han saying he was a brave old geezer in the movie. I think that's that's a Marvel Comics line I don't love. Because once again, people throwing around the word geezer in Star Wars seems a little odd to me. And then you get to, ladies and gentlemen, the late great Gilbert Gottfried as Luke Skywalker on that last panel.
It does look like Gilbert Gottfried.
Killed him, you dirty! Yeah!
with a mighty frap from his
Yeah,
blaster.
he's frapping good, man. He's
Look,
frapping
don't interrupt Luke while he's frapping, okay?
everybody. Yeah, I had to confirm there was an R in there. Great. Okay, it's a frap. Never mind. I was a little concerned for half a second. But also you killed him, you dirty. What? Where was that going, Luke? I don't like that. I don't like where that's headed.
Well, again, we don't. Who knows? Luke's not going to be cursing in this book though, because he gets cut off by the next page as he's gunning down stormtroopers.
Well, luckily they're all standing in a line for him too, which is good.
Well, the classic Imperial conga line formation has won many battles, John.
Dung 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 dung. Here they come.
The idea being they can't shoot through all of the guys in front of you.
Well, he frapped a couple. Now he's berserking these guys.
I love a good berserk.
Yeah. And they're only zicking back, so what chance do they have?
Almost none.
Yeah. We get a lot more of Luke's bloodthirsty vengeance here. He shoots a couple of stormtroopers in the movie. Here it seems like he's out there for a little while just gunning dudes down.
Well, and again, we've got more time to sit with it in the comic book, whereas
Yeah.
it's a lot more frenetic and it's moving a lot quicker in the film.
And then a distinct, familiar, yet different voice rings in his ears. Luke.
It's Ben Kenobi's voice. Thanks, book.
Thank you. But was it? Maybe he just imagined it. Spoiler, no, he didn't.
Yeah. I believe
there's
in the movie it's run, Luke, run.
There is, yeah. Here he's just like, Luke, I was actually gonna never go ahead.
You seem busy.
Yeah. I'll come back. Those footsteps.
So yeah, he runs up the gangplank, gets back into the Millennium Falcon. Leia's consoling him as he says, "I can't believe he's gone." And then we come to our last page of the issue.
And let's not leave out R2's mournful boop.
Oh well, it's a sad boop. We all knew it was a sad boop.
And then we take off. We get all the thing. I hope that old man managed to knock out that tractor beam. Otherwise, it's going to be a very short trip. And hey, it's all right.
Yeah,
a line he definitely doesn't say in the movie. Hold on tight, kiddies.
Because here we go. Yeah. Can I just comment on the top right panel here with the 3PO with his head in his hands, looking like wistful, like he's a child contemplating his future?
I've been through so much today, Master Luke. Oh dear.
Also, these panels really firmly establishing they have no idea how the Millennium Falcon's laid out, with Chewie and Han at the controls, but also Luke and Leia is sitting at the table directly behind them.
It doesn't even make any logical sense, really. Like, why would that, even if you don't know how the Falcon's laid out, why would that be the case?
Don't worry about it.
And off it goes. The pirate starship powers away from the massive Death Star and disappears into the vastness of space. Next issue, escape to the moons of Yavin.
I do love me a good escape to the moons of Yavin.
I do too, but it makes me really go, how they're really gonna, there is not much. At this point, we basically have the Battle of the Death Star left, so is it just going to be them running around the base on Yavin 4? Well, I guess we got to get the battle with the TIE fighters here.
We get the don't get cocky kid moment. So
yeah. That can be a whole issue.
Oh, and it will be.
I have no doubt. Yeah. But I will say, I will say 4 issues in, I'm hitting the wall on the adaptation. I am going like, oh my God. Can we please get away from the movie?
Well, we've got 2 issues left, John.
Yeah. Before we get to some real silly, because already there are such weird impulses in this comic. So I'm going like, I cannot wait till they are unshackled from the movie and just getting ready for the complete insanity to follow.
Oh, and look, I don't want to overhype it too much because some of it's real dumb, but there is some real bonkers stuff happening just after we get away from the movie.
Well, yeah, and that's certainly my knowledge of the comic is only from bits and pieces and more in an attitude of people going like, "Can you believe they did this in the comic?" More so than I've actually like, sat down and read it. I know some of the more insane stuff. Obviously, we keep hyping up Jackson.
We're on Jackson count of several issues and
Oh
counting.
my God, Jackson is just everything about Jackson he really is the perfect encapsulation of this comic.
Mm-hmm.
So. But yeah, that's issue 4, and where they're just dragging this sucker out.
Yes, indeed. And as always, thank you for listening. If you want to support this and all the shows on the Punch Up Entertainment Network, you can do so over at our Patreon page. That's patron.podbean.com/punchup. There you can get all sorts of bonus material, including, but not limited to, a whole host of podcasts that are recorded explicitly for the patron feed, including one that John and I did where we watched the entirety of the 1970s Incredible Hulk TV show, The
You
Green
just
Mile.
can't get enough of you and I talking about relics of 1970s pop culture.
Oh, and boy, is that one a relic.
Oh my God, so weird.
At least this one has some contemporary stuff we can compare to, right?
Yeah, that was complete insanity. So yeah, you can do that, and of course, if you're a fan of this show here on YouTube and you're watching on there, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and ring that bell for your notifications.
Mm-hmm. Bongle the dongle and all the little bits down below.
But yeah, I think that's gonna do it for this week's episode.
And as always, may the panel be with you.